Before I started my graduate program in gender and international relations, I thought that I should probably read a book or two in preparation for my first seminars, and one of those books was Cynthia Enloe's classic text, Bananas, Beaches and Bases, Making Feminist Sense of International Politics. I didn't know it at the time, but this book is widely held to be one of the most influential texts in feminist IR scholarship. Enloe asks a deceptively simple question in Bananas, as it is affectionately known: where are the women in international politics? And in her exploration of all of the locations where women are found in the practices of global politics, from banana plantations to tourist industries to military bases, Enloe demonstrates, as she put it, that gender makes the world go round, and that any study of world politics that doesn't pay attention to gender and power is both partial and misguided. This book chapter picks up on many of those themes, and in doing so offers a re-theorization of power from a feminist perspective that shows us how limited most mainstream understandings of power actually are. In the chapter, Enloe very cleverly shows how a discipline that is supposedly centered on power, which states have it, which don't, which organizations use theirs effectively, and which are lacking or inefficient, actually pays surprisingly little attention to the different forms of power that animate world politics. Located on the margins of world politics, Enloe finds a whole cast of actors whose voices are silenced because it is assumed, by conventional studies of world politics, that they have nothing to contribute to the discussions going on at the centre. Enloe notes that this marginalization, this silencing, is a political, not a natural process, because it takes resources and access to be heard when and where it matters. The real contribution of Enloe's analysis is in her re-theorization of power, and it is worth quoting this bit from pages 188 and 189 at length. She says, "The actual amount and the amazing variety of power that are required to keep the voices on the margins from having the right language and enough volume to be heard at the centre in ways that might send shivers up and down the ladder are never fully tallied. Power, of course, is a relationship. So omitting a myriad strands of power amounts to exaggerating the simplicity of the entire political system. Today's conventional portrait of international politics thus too often ends up looking like a Superman comic strip, whereas it should probably resemble a Jackson Pollock." I love this short excerpt because it's so clear but so profound. She's basically saying that most conventional or mainstream accounts of world politics dramatically simplify the image they produce of the world that they study in order to make sense of it. But this means that the sense they make is really one-dimensional and even simplistic. These accounts don't let you create a complex and nuanced picture of what's going on in world politics, of who is involved and who is excluded, and what is given priority and which voices get heard. Enloe draws attention to the fact that mainstream international relations scholars failed to include the Mayan Indians of Chiapas in their analysis of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. Chiapas is a southern state of Mexico bordering Guatemala, and as Enloe says, it fits all the criteria of a classically marginal political space. Enloe identifies Chiapas as a rich site of political activity that ought to be central rather than marginal to engagements with NAFTA in the early 1990s. More specifically, she focuses on the gendered and racialized political economy of the area that infused and informed the Chiapas Peasant Rebellion in January 1994, which took those blinkered, gender-blind, mainstream analysts by surprise. These peasant farmers of Chiapas were doing what so many international relations commentators were not: tracing causal connections between local political economies, state system contradictions, and emergent interstate relations. These connections reverberated across Mexico and North America, as Enloe explains, and she draws on a wide range of sources to develop her argument, a mode of scholarship that also subtly reminds us to rethink that which we are trained to think of as evidence in our quest to excavate and examine the operations of power in both the world and our analysis of it. The 1994 Chiapas Rebellion and its ripples now spread throughout the Mexican political system, to press reporters' relations with the state, to the opposition parties' relations with electoral officials, to citizens' sense of their political capacities. Enloe shows how this much overlooked social movement, the Chiapas Peasant Rebellion, was not only connected in fundamental ways to the broader political dynamics across Mexico at the time, but was also produced by and productive of configurations of power that enable and sustain particular forms of political activity while excluding others. This entire chapter focuses on power, and in that sense it is a vehicle for thinking through the themes of this course. Enloe artfully connects gender, race, and sexuality, all relations of power, to political enfranchisement, economies of land ownership, and international trade agreements, techniques of power that are more visible in conventional accounts of world politics. Enloe demonstrates conclusively that it is only by delving deeper into any political system, listening attentively at its margins, that one can accurately estimate the power it has taken to provide the state with the apparent stability that has permitted its elite to presume to speak on behalf of a coherent whole. Only with this explicit political accounting can we explain why the evolving international system takes the turns it does today. We have a responsibility as scholars of politics and international relations to examine power. It is, after all, the touchstone of political analysis. But we cannot conceive of power in narrow, unidimensional, simplistic ways. We have to recognize that often in our scholarship, a great deal of human dignity has to be left on the cutting room floor for our explanations to be useful and concise, and that the decisions that we take about what to include and what to leave out are themselves practices of power. In order to understand politics and international relations, we must understand the power that it takes to position people and things at the center and at the margins of our analysis, to render some voices silent in our analysis while others are heard.